going to come to Proverbs chapter 3 today. If you have the Bibles, you can go to Proverbs chapter 3. And we'll really look at a few verses, but we'll read from verse 1 to 12 together. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1. My son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Do not let kindness and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. So you will find favor and good repute in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your body and refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord from your wealth and from the first of all your produce. So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. My son, do not reject the discipline of the Lord or loathe His reproof. For whom the Lord loves, He reproves, even as a father corrects his son, in whom He delights. Let's take a moment to just pray and ask God to bless our service. Our Father in heaven, we thank You for the gospel that went out even in Tsaki's funeral. We thank You for brothers and sisters that was willing to go there and to share the gospel, to share Your love with that family. And as an extension, love of this church to that family. And we do pray, Father, for those that have the gospel there, that You might even still bring conviction to their hearts and help them that they might place their faith and trust in Jesus alone. We also pray that if anyone here today is here that might not know You as your personal Lord and Savior, today might be the day that they will place their faith and trust in Jesus Christ alone. And Father, as we study Your word and look at Your word now, we pray that You will truly help us to focus on You and Your word alone, and on nothing and no one else. And might Your word truly have impact in our lives and hearts today that You desire it to have. And we thank You. We can ask this in Jesus' name alone. Amen. Well, I'll put the two verses we're going to focus on up there, so you have them in front of you the whole time. So we're going to look at verse 5 and 6. It says, Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Trust. You know, I thought about this a little bit, and I thought, trust is one of those words that's thrown around a lot. It's promoted, it's abused. Politicians love to tell us that we need to trust them. Our bosses tell us that we need to trust them. And if we're a boss, we very likely tell our staff to trust us. Products are sold on the basis that we trust the promises made regarding that product. Every week, it seems, there's a new diet that comes out that promises that if we do this diet and trust this diet, we will lose 10 kgs at the end of the week. Right? And everyone jumps on the diet every second week, it seems. There's exercise equipment. And if there's a new diet every week, it seems there's new exercise equipment every day of the week. And if you have any of those channels on your TV that says, call this number now and you can have so much money free, and you'll get all these extra things with it, and then you'll have this body and not this body. In 2 weeks later. Do they go to work? No, but do we trust those ads? Well, if you look at the sales figures, yes, people do trust those ads. But do we truly have an idea what trust means? And I think the problem is that we might not have a correct understanding of what true, real trust is, and what God means when He tells us to trust in Him with our whole heart. Because trusting requires us to be surrendered. And we cannot trust someone completely if we do not have a surrendered heart in that matter. As an example, if you trust something that you buy, you have to surrender the money to get that thing. Oswald Chambers, I don't know how many of you know, but Oswald Chambers, he wrote a little devotional, My Utmost for His Highest. And it says the following regarding a surrendered life. It says, you will never know anything about surrender until you understand that John 3:16 means that God gave Himself absolutely and completely to us. In our surrender, we must give ourselves in the same way He gave Himself for us. Totally, unconditionally, and without reservation. So my first point is that total trust requires total surrender. If you think back to the time of Jesus was in the garden, the night before His execution, and He was crying, speaking to the Father, and He was in agony, and He even asked His Father to take away His cross, if at all possible. But nevertheless, Father, that Your will be done. That is the total manner of surrender that we need to have. The way that Jesus surrendered Himself to the Father's will and went ahead and went to the cross for our sins. That's the way that we need to surrender. Jesus was able to do that, though, because He completely, fully, and perfectly trusted God the Father. Oswald Chambers also says the following regarding this kind of life. He says, no one is ever united with Jesus Christ until he is willing to give up not only sin, but his whole way of looking at things. So do we have anything approaching that kind of trust and surrender for God? No, until there's a kind of total trust, a total surrender, there can't be real spiritual success. But we have to realize that until we are fully trusting God, we run the risk of striving against God. Matthew 16:24 says, then Jesus said to His disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. God is asking, not just asking, He's commanding us to be surrendered. Yet too often, we do not want to completely surrender. Even if we are saved, we can make a mistake of not truly surrendering completely. And if you're not fully surrendered to God and everything, it means we're not fully trusting Him. Now let's look at trust a little bit more. And if you think about kids, they seem to be trusting, especially when they're young, their parents, and it seems to be a natural thing. But if you really think about it, are we naturally trusting people? So children, especially if their parents clothe them, feed them, love them, trust them, and then we have to warn them that, you can't trust everyone. Do not talk to strangers. Everyone remember hearing that as they grew up? It seems like we're not telling kids that anymore. Why do we tell them that? Because there are people that we cannot trust. But do we realize who it is that we are commanded to trust in? It's not a stranger, it's not our earthly parents, but it's our Father in heaven. Do we realize that our Lord is the most faithful, reliable, kind, generous, wise parent that we will ever have? So then we can ask ourselves a question, why is it that we sometimes trust our earthly parents more than we trust our heavenly parent? We need to learn to trust Him just like we learned to trust our parents. Another example would be chairs. Okay, this is an age-old example probably, but we all trust that chairs will hold us up. The first time you see a chair, I'm not sure because most of us are too young to remember the first time, but the first time you see a chair, you might wonder, is this safe? As an example, I think there's sometimes I've driven across bridges that as you approach the bridge, because you've never driven across it once before, and it looks a little bit old, you might wonder, is that bridge safe to cross? Especially if it's an old wooden bridge. And yet you kind of pursue and you slowly go and you finally drive over it and it holds you. The next time it's not that difficult. So a chair, you sit down, it holds you up. And until you fully sit like this, you're not really trusting in the chair to hold you up. And once you're sitting down on it, you're trusting it to hold you up. But my manager, and to give you an example of how trusting we can be, my manager once sat down in our boardroom on a specific chair. Looked very much similar to this, well constructed and everything. And the next thing, the whole thing collapsed on him, and he was on the floor. The joke is, we fixed the chair. Well, I didn't realize they actually didn't fix the chair, they didn't replace the chair. A few months later, he came in and just sat down, and 5 minutes into the conversation, did the same thing. He was flat on his back on the floor. And then he just laughed. It was actually, I mean, we shouldn't have laughed, but it was just hilarious. Until he didn't laugh, and it took about 2 minutes for him to start laughing about it. But anyway. See, the thing is, we are conditioned to trust something because it never failed us. I can promise you, my manager never again sat in a chair. Next time he came in, and we actually threw that chair out. And he actually asked, is that chair still around here? Because there was a boardroom table and there's about 6 chairs. And they all looked the same. So he actually asked, is that chair still around? And he actually was very very hesitant to sit on any of those chairs. Understandably, it failed him twice. So when we trust something, when we learn that something works, we keep on trusting it. And it's the same with buildings. None of you have walked into this building thinking, this building might fall down on me. Or I hope it didn't. But if you've ever been in a situation where a building fell down on you, as some people have, same thing with people who were in a plane accident, plane crash, and they survived. The next time they're going to fly a plane, they're not as trusting, and it becomes a difficult thing for them to do. So why is that? Because we learn to trust in something until it fails us, and then we struggle. So why, if God never fails us, do we struggle? We have to learn to trust Him. See, we should not forget, and we should remember that our Lord is a strong and mighty fortress. He is more reliable than any materials of anything that we encounter in this world, or any people that we encounter in this world. The Bible even tells us that one day the present heavens, and I have to mention that the heavens will include the stars, moon, sun, everything. And this earth will melt down, yet our Lord will still be there. He is trustworthy. Now, there are situations that we don't trust because we never learned to trust. For example, if my staff, certain of my staff members tell me that they've done something, I tend to go and check, because they've often before lied or done incorrectly. And I think we all know situations where we don't trust people, for instance, politicians, or anything else, many other things. It can be sometimes a little bit easy to do. Some of those youth kids on Friday night, I will not trust near the door of that vehicle again, because one of them opened the door while we were still moving on Friday night and fell out. I would hope he would remember that, but I won't even put my trust in that he will remember that, because he probably will do it again. Thankfully, he's still alive and not any worse off. The scary part is how everyone else has started laughing at him. I'm a driver, I'm scared. So you're okay, it's repercussions, and yet he seems to be fine now. See, when we don't trust someone or something, it's because we probably were hurt or realized that what that person or that thing says is not trustworthy. And the problem is that sometimes we do that with our Lord. We want to kind of like test Him. You know, Gideon put out a fleece and said, it's wet, and everything else is dry in the morning. Then I'll trust you, Lord. And the next morning he said, okay, well now, it was wet and everything else was dry. Please reverse it the next day and make everything wet, but the fleece dry. And we are not trusting until we've learned to trust our Lord completely. It says in Hebrews 11 verse 6, he says, and without faith it is impossible to please Him, for he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who seek Him. So it's impossible for us to please God, to honor Him, to truly walk in obedience to Him, and do His will for our lives if we don't trust Him. Point number 2 is, who is our trust in? Verse 5, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your understanding. It says, trust in the Lord. Folks, the object of our trust is more important than the amount of trust we have. Because we must trust in the Lord alone. The key is the object of our trust. You see, it's possible to have a strong faith and trust and have the wrong object. After all, the world today teaches us, but it's okay. We can believe in anything and everything. All paths lead to heaven. As long as you trust in some God. Doesn't matter if you're Muslim, Buddhist, Mormon, whether you believe in that things you do will get you to heaven. Just trust. This is not true. You know, there was a horrible train accident, I think it was in the 30s, 20s or 30s, and I think it was around outside Chicago, I can't remember exactly, but the point was, it was a freight train and a passenger train, and they collided. Somehow they ended up in the same tracks and they collided. When rescue crews arrived, they found the driver of one of the trains barely alive, and he found his clipboard and on it he scribbled. He wrote as much as he was able to in his last moments before they found him. They gave me the wrong directions. They collided because he had the wrong directions, yet he trusted those directions implicitly. He didn't want to have an accident, he trusted them. But because they were wrong, it didn't help him. And if our trust is not in the right one, then it is useless and tragic. And the Bible makes it very clear that there's only one way to heaven, only one way for our salvation. It's through faith in the Lord Jesus Christ alone. Ephesians 2 verse 8 and 9, it says, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it's a gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. You see, salvation is not by anyone or anything, and definitely not by ourselves. It's by faith in Jesus Christ alone. Nothing we do says not by works, so that no one may boast. It doesn't matter if you come to church. This was sad to me, and it's Friday night. Some of our one boy, actually 3 of them, said to me, yeah, we come to church every Friday night, and we pray, and so we'll go to heaven. That's not true. The Bible says in Proverbs 3:23, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We cannot get to heaven by anything we do. Our best works, as I says, are like filthy rags before God. So if you think all the good things you do will get you to heaven, and think of a rag filled with grease and blood, and when you cannot see if it was white before, you cannot see one bit of white anymore because it's black and red and gross, and you do not want to touch it. That is how our good works are before the Lord if we are not placing our faith and trust in Him alone. We cannot say, I believe in all that Jesus did for me, I believe He died on the cross, but I'm also doing this and this. It's my faith in Him alone. Romans 6:23 makes it clear that the wages of sin is death, but the eternal gift of God, the gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ our Lord, a free gift of God. That's why Jesus Christ came and died for our sins on the cross. Romans 10 verse 9 and 10. Some of my favorite verses in the Bible. If you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. For if a heart person believes, resulting in righteousness, and with the mouth he confesses, resulting in salvation. Our trust must be in the correct one, the Lord Jesus Christ alone. He's the one who paid the price for our sins on the cross. He's the one who gave His life for us on the cross. Make certain that you have come to Him alone for your salvation. And if you're not sure about your salvation even today, do not leave here before talking to us. So the third point then is, how much trust are we supposed to have? It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. See, there can be, when you think of a parachutist, you cannot be a half-hearted parachutist. And just picture this. Parachutist gets out and he says, well, gee, I've got a parachute in my back, and I trust in this thing, but I'm going to hold on to this plane as well. If he then pulls that cord to let out that parachute, I promise you, he's probably going to take himself and the plane down. And that's a half-hearted parachutist. See, if you want to be a parachutist, you must put your faith completely in that parachute that's on your back. You must jump and trust that that thing will go. The same must be true of our faith. We can't try and walk by faith in the Lord with one hand, holding on to what we know is right and comfortable and easy, and say, I'm going to use the church as an example again. We cannot say, oh, I'm going to walk by faith in the Lord, but I'm going to trust Him completely, but I'll just do it like this. I'll basically keep one foot on my side, but I know it's safe and nothing can happen to me. I'll put the helmet on and I'll make sure if I fall, I'm going to be okay. And yet, I want to trust the Lord as well. It says, with all our heart. There must be a total commitment and a total trust in the Lord in all of our lives. Every aspect of our lives must be surrendered to Him. Jeremiah 29 verse 13 says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. It's amazing how many times that phrase, all your heart, appears in the Bible. And all of the times it refers to trusting in the Lord. So what is it that we need to surrender and trust Lord completely with? What is it that we need to surrender and give over to Him? It might be our egos, our money, our jobs, our fears, our accomplishments, our reputation, our strength, our pride, our stubbornness, our personal will. Basically, all the things that says, I will do. Whenever there's an I involved, that needs to be surrendered to Him. That means when I have an I involved, when I say something, I did this, or when I'm not trusting the Lord, that is about me. We must come to a point where we will completely and absolutely surrender all to Him. It's the only way to completely do it. Sometimes, though, I think we struggle with this because we do not truly have enough of a real relationship with Him. We don't truly know Him and trust Him as we should. So if we don't know Him, then we're going to struggle to truly trust Him. And therefore we will struggle to surrender and to love Him the way we need to. But we need to come to know Him. We need to come to a point where we love Him more than we love anything or anyone else. And if we truly want to come to Him, truly come to love Him, we need to learn His word. Now, God didn't just leave us on this earth alone. Actually, why did Jesus have to leave? What He said, He sent His helper, the Holy Spirit. Because He wants us to go out through the whole world, and He doesn't want us to go out alone. He wants us to go together with Him. And therefore He sends His Holy Spirit to come and dwell in every believer and to empower us. But then He gave us also His word. And believe me, it's rich. It's wonderful. As I said to someone this week, one of my favorite things to do in the morning when I wake up is to get a cup of coffee and sit down with the Bible and start reading and studying this. Because when I sit down with this in the morning and all other distractions are gone and I don't allow other distractions to come, and I focus on His word alone and He speaks to me, and He shows me what He wants to take out of my life, and He shows me what He wants to put in my life. And I can start praying, and then I can start memorizing verses that will help me to do that, or remind me to do that. And when I see Him telling me, here's an answer to whatever question you had, and I get to know who my God is, because the more I study this, the more amazed I am at how amazing this God of ours are. How wonderful He is, how loving He is, how kind He is, how patient He is. I just have to know how many times He forgives my sin to know that. But see, if we're not eagerly studying this word, and then take it and then apply it and obey it by His grace and independence upon Him, then how are we going to keep trusting Him? You know, I heard this somewhere, so it's not my original saying, but it says the following: to know Him is to love Him, and to love Him is to trust Him, and to trust Him is to obey Him. If I'm trusting Him with all my heart, then I will obey Him completely as He says. And then we will find spiritual victory. Fourth point says, do not lean on your own understanding. You know, when we face unsure times, when we face things we're not sure about how to deal with, we like to try and figure it out. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't think things through. I'm not saying that it should be, well, forget everything else and I'm just going to do whatever God says and not even going to try and apply common sense. No, you read the Bible. Actually, Proverbs is a book of applying common sense to your life. It promotes common sense, but always in conjunction with the wisdom of God and trusting Him. But we like to see the full picture before we commit to something. You know, for a day job, I have to, big part of my job every day is to analyze the risk. I have to look at projects, new programs, and as part of planning it is analyzing the risk. It's one of the key components of every project we put together. What are all the risks? And we have to list them, and what financial implications they will have, etc., etc., etc. What could go wrong? When is it likely to go wrong? What's a possibility? And in a project sense, most of the time, we only commit once we know all the answers, or we think we do. Because I've never run a single project where it didn't come up something that we couldn't plan for. I would love to have one of those. You see, part of my struggle, even in obeying God, or immediately obeying Him, is realizing that when He tells me to do something, I need to do it. And there's times in my life when I knew the Lord was telling me to do something. And I looked at myself and I said, Philip, you're not able to do that. You're not capable. And I've seen other people do that, and I've seen the good things, but I've also seen all the struggles they've gone through. I've seen how they struggle with people hurting them and obeying the Lord in that specific thing. I've looked at myself and I said, it'd be too difficult. I don't have those abilities. And you know what? And every single one of those risks that I've identified, I was correct. But that's a problem. Because it's not about me. It's not about ourselves. We have to obey the Lord and trust Him and forget about all the things that we cannot figure out. When He tells us in His Word, when He tells us through His Holy Spirit to do something, we have to trust Him and not lean on our own understanding in how to do it. And see, we'll never understand His ways. We'll never see what He sees. And Isaiah 55 verse 9 says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. We can't try and reduce everything down to what we understand, because what we're doing then is we're making God much smaller than who God really is. And if we try and rely on our own understanding and try and figure out why we do something, why something's happening to us, it only frustrates us and keeps us from moving forward in obeying God. We read from the book of Job this morning. And if you read through the book of Job, a large part of the book is about him and his friends talking about all the things that happened to Job and why it happened. You know, Job must have done this, or that's the reason, and then we read just the first 18 verses of God answering Job. If you read from verse 30, chapter 38 all the way through to chapter 41, end of 41, you'll see how God answers Job. And we saw a little bit this morning about God saying, you know, were you there when I created the heavens and the earth? Did you tell the morning to come out at this time, the sun to come up at this time? Did you put down the boundaries of where a seed can go and not go? Did you tell this animal he can do this and he can eat this? It's amazing when you think about everything that God, in the minutest detail, designed and created, and yet we're trying to understand things like that. We cannot. And one thing I learned through his pregnancy is that the heartbeat of a baby, they can pick it up from, I think, 8 days or so into a pregnancy. I'm not sure exactly now. But basically, heartbeat starts at conception. It's one of the very first things to start. There's a heartbeat right from the beginning. From less than a day old, that baby has a heartbeat. Now, only God can do that. I cannot. To be honest, I can't even see most of the things I put on the ultrasound. The doctors tell me, where's your kidneys? I say, well, I'll trust you. It looks to me like a black dot. There's a whole lot of other black dots. It's supposed to be 2 kidneys wise. We have 20 different black dots. I don't know. But those doctors don't even understand God completely. We cannot try and make things work out our way and understand it. Just like Job, at the end of the book, he had to say, as we read in chapter 42, he had to come to God and he repented and he said, I understand now, I do not understand. I do not know. I'm not there. And he had to repent. And God used all those trials in his life to bring Job to a new point in his relationship with him. See, the Lord does not want us to worry and stress and be frustrated. He wants us to acknowledge Him and trust Him and do not lean on our own understanding. Are we willing to do that? Point number 5, verse 6, we read, in all your ways acknowledge Him. Point number 5 is in all your ways acknowledge Him. See, a real surrender is acknowledging Him in all the areas of our lives. If He is Lord of our lives, then we will allow Him and welcome Him into all the areas of our lives. If we trust Him with our hearts completely, we will want Him to come into our hearts and into every area of our lives, into every thought, into everything I see, into everything I do, everything I speak. See, we cannot live for Him one day of a week and keep 6 days for ourselves, or even the other way around, live for Him 6 days of a week and keep 1 day for ourselves. We can't say, well, God, I'm going to give you all my habits, but I'll keep these 5 habits for myself, or these 2 habits, or whatever it might be. We can't try and give Him control over our lives, but keep 10% or 5% or even 1% or even 0.1% for ourselves. See, acknowledge literally means to recognize His presence. And the opposite of recognizing His presence in every aspect of our lives is to ignore Him in our lives. The Bible tells us to recognize His sovereignty and control in all the areas of our lives. So are we honoring His Lordship, His presence in our relationships, in our jobs, in all the areas of our thoughts, our actions, and our words? When Apostle Paul met the Lord Jesus on the road to Damascus, he first asked, who is this? And God, Jesus Christ, answered and said, I'm the Lord that you are persecuting. The second question was, Lord, what would you have me to do? Are we ready to ask that? Lord, what would you have me to do? Galatians 2:20 says, I have been crucified with Christ, therefore it's no longer I will live, but Christ that lives in me. And the life that I now live in the flesh, I was in this fleshly body still, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. Paul recognized that it's not about him. He recognized that I had to die. Final point, point 6, it says, but He will direct our paths, and He will make your paths straight. Do not misunderstand, my friends. Serving the Lord, obeying the Lord, being saved does not mean a healthy, wealthy, prosperous life. That is teaching right out of a pit of hell. And people use phrases like this, He will make your path straight. But What does it mean? Matthew 7, verse 13 to 14, Jesus said there's two ways that we can walk on. One is a broad way that's easygoing and comfortable and has wealth and prosperity on it, but it leads straight to the lake of fire. And the other way, he said, this is a hard way to find it. It's a narrow way. It's a difficult way, but it leads to heaven. It leads to eternal life. God desires for us to walk along the path that He shows us. It's a place of blessing, a place of God's profound way. And it's easy to miss it. You know what? I don't believe any of us will get to heaven and say, you know what? I wish I kept more for myself. You know what? I wish I spent more time for myself. Or I surrendered too much to God. I think we'll all say, no. I wish I did more for the Lord. I wish I surrendered myself in more ways, in more complete ways. I wish I trusted Him really with every part of my heart. Because the path that He will lead us on when we do that is a narrow path. And only He can direct us to. And somehow I think there's this idea that's coming to our heads. And I had this, unfortunately, when I was a teenager, I had this, and that's why I thought about this. That if we give God too much, and we allow Him, and we somehow pray and say, Lord, do with me whatever you want to do, and I'll do whatever you want, that He's somehow going to send me to the worst place on earth, and my life is going to be miserable. And I'm going to struggle, and He might even give me a very ugly wife, and that's wrong. See, when we actually follow God and we walk on the path that He shows us, the path that He will direct us on, and we trust Him completely, yes, He might send us to what is, in the world's eyes, considered the worst place in the world. But you will have His joy, because you're doing what He says, and you're doing it with His strength. And when we truly understand what He wants, if we truly understand who our God is and what He wants, we'll eagerly want that as well. Even our common sense will tell us to grab hold of it and to obey Him and do it. Earlier I mentioned some of my fears in surrendering to the Lord in certain things. Yet when I obeyed God, I'm not saying every moment is rose-colored and wonderful and easy-going. There's trials and difficulties as part of this world. But you know what? The Lord's allowed me so much joy and blessing by seeing people saved, by seeing lives transformed, by being able to go to places that I never would have imagined going myself. And I can truly say that it's real joy involved in that, when you truly trust Him with it. His way truly is wonderful. Are you on a path that He's directing you to be on? So what would this path look like? Well, here's a couple of things that I believe God says it will be. We'll be daily filled with His Holy Spirit. We'll be daily bearing the fruit of His Spirit. Can others see His love, His joy, His peace, His patience, His kindness, His goodness, His faithfulness, His gentleness, and His self-control in every area of your life? Because if we walk on His pathway and we trust Him, that will be part of that path. His Holy Spirit will fill us and we'll bear the fruit of the Holy Spirit. Are we overflowing with love for Him? How much of our conversation every day is around the Lord Jesus Christ, around God and what God does? Or is it only at home? Or is there more places we can talk about Him? Are we eagerly sharing the gospel? Because that is definitely part of God's life, a path to share the gospel wherever we go. Do people even know that we are Christians? Do we truly have His peace in the midst of the worst of times in this world? And are we sitting daily at His feet, drinking from His word, and getting to know our Father more and loving Him more? If we are directed by Him in our paths, then we will be busy with His word, doing the work of sharing the gospel, doing the work of leading people to the Lord, doing the good works He prepared for us from the beginning. You know what? Alex Destiny wonderful because part of his testimony says, yes, we are doing that. Because there is a testimony that this church really loves each other. And I praise the Lord for that. But you know what, if we are truly walking on that path, if we are trusting the Lord with all our heart, not leaning on our own understanding, this is something we have to fight and surrender to Him. And in all our ways, recognize His presence in every part of our lives. Then one day, we might hear the words, well done, my good and faithful servant, when we get to heaven. Remember, to know Him is to love Him. To love Him is to trust Him. To trust Him is to obey Him. To bring us back to what Oswald Chambers said, he said, you will never know anything about surrender until you understand what John 3:16 means, that God gave Himself absolutely and completely to us. In our surrender, we must give ourselves the same way He gave Himself for us, totally, unconditionally, and without reservation. That, my friends, is the way we are to trust God, unconditionally and without reservation. And you might ask, what can I do? I might not be able to come to you for junior church. You can spend that entire time praying for those ministries, as Walter said this morning. We need to pray more. And trusting the Lord requires prayer, because that's how we talk to the Lord about it. Let's surrender ourselves completely to the Lord, trust in Him, study His Word, and do what He commands us to do, so that He alone might